Okay, so before we were seeing the presentation from Book about Google I/O, and I went with Leonid, and now he's standing there taking a picture. And in the way returning to Bangkok, we were talking about how was the impact of this Google I/O in the point of view of the Android developer. And we agree that it was the best Google I/O ever. Talking about the Android things. So the first thing that Google released on the keynote was Kotlin, and it was a big new, a huge new, because it was something that the community was expecting, not about Kotlin, or it was asking for a change, because we were working with Java 6, Java 7, and sometimes it was like a little bit old, right? Now Google released Kotlin for Android as official language. This is a big new. Remember that at 11:30, you have a talk with Travis, and then at 4, you have a workshop with Travis and Bert that I totally recommend you to go. The other topic or the other feature that Google released in Google I/O, it was great. It was the architecture components. Ek is going to speak about that in 1 hour in the main room. And it's something as well that Google has listened to the community, because years ago, or 1 year ago, if you ask Google about how I have to build my app, how has to be the architecture, always Google answer, I provide you the framework, I provide the SDK. The architecture of the app is on you. But we had questions, and with architecture components, it's something that is helping you to build better apps in a easy way. And talking about our daily work, or IDE, the build tools, that's the topic of my talk. So Android Studio, it has a new version. It has the 3.0. Actually, it's the same version as IntelliJ. And behind Android Studio is JetBrains as Kotlin. So it's a win-win relation between Google and IntelliJ. So let's check what's inside in Android Studio in a demo. Let's see if everything goes well with the demo. Okay, first of all, I want to show you that with the new Android Studio, and this version is the Android Studio 3 Canary 4. Actually, there is the Canary 5, but I prefer to do this demonstration with the Canary 4 because it was working better for me. If you want to download Android Studio, you have to go to the website, the Canary channel, and download this beta. So the first thing, of course, is Kotlin, right? So now, if we want to create a new project on Android Studio, we have this option of include Kotlin as, support Kotlin in the project. That means that we don't have to do any black magic behind the scenes, and we can select the project and including the Kotlin support. So, and it's the same as before if you want to create a Java project. We have the templates, if we want to create a full screen activity, add move, material detail, and let's choose a navigation drawer activity. Same as before, and the project generated is going to be entirely in Kotlin. If we open, for example, the main activity, we can see that it's Kotlin. So if you have some questions about how is going to be the first activity, for example, think that Kotlin is providing the Android Studio is providing your activity. More about Kotlin, if we have, for example, one activity from the previous version, because of course we had a lot of Java base code, right? We have the option to convert the file, the entire Java file that we are, for example, editing in that case, and converting to a Kotlin file. So after this conversion, we have the entire file completed. So it's not difficult. Okay, But if, for example, now that it's early days for a lot of us with Kotlin, because we don't have this experience, maybe we can follow some workshops, tutorials, but still we have some questions. So imagine that I'm working, like here, Like here, I'm working with my Kotlin class, and well, I trying to port my Kotlin class from one Java, but I don't know how to write this Java code. So I have a simple interaction with Java Rise, and I want to know how to build this in Kotlin. It's quite easy because I can copy the text, and then in my Kotlin class, I can copy directly, and it's showing a dialog asking me if I want to port to Kotlin. And the code is ported to Kotlin at the same time. So, yeah. But I'm a user. I didn't develop anything. I'm a user. Yeah, and it's quite convenient. And again, so repeat that we have a talk about Kotlin with Travis and workshop with Bert and Travis as well this afternoon. More things about Android Studio. We have, let me start the emulator. Yeah, we have a new feature, and it's like now you can include Google Play in it's included the Google Play in the emulator. So if you are testing your app and you want to interact with your app, let's say that you have this app in the Google Play and you have to download, you can do in the emulator. Or you can test in-app purchasing as well. That's something common. So the people from Google has provided this Google Play feature. So by default, you don't have to do anything. You can open the Google Play in your emulator, type your test account, whatever, and work with that. Okay. Another cool thing. Let's start with other emulator too. In that case, I'm opening a Nougat emulator, not the Google Play. We have a new tab in the bottom right that is the device file explorer, and it's quite good because before we were using the DDMS or other operations like in Mac, the Android file transfer. It was a little bit tricky, and here we have the completely access to the phone, and we can do whatever we want. More things about Android Studio. Yeah, the Apk Analyzer has been improved. That's quite interesting. Now you can have two options. When you want to open a file, you can open a debug APK, and you can do the same. But for example, if we get the app debug for this APK, we have different new options. Again, you have an APK and you want to analyze the size, the strings, the layouts, what's wrong with the size of your APK. Now with this layout editor, we can see all the layouts included in the app. For example, for strings is as well convenient because all the strings now we know the translations, and maybe we can detect that here we have some problems with some translations that actually are not there. And related with the Java files, with the DEX files. So once we have the APK index files, we can read the content of the APK. And one cool thing is included in this version is that we can load the ProWare mapping text. So imagine that you are in a release mode and you have the mapping text generated by ProWare. You can map the ProWare file with this option, and you can see the same result. Talking about the simple code, this example, in my DEX file, I have my main activity, and I have the reference. I can show the bytecode of the DEX file. That's quite interesting. If, for example, we are trying to compare even with Kotlin, somehow the difference between an activity with Java and Kotlin we can do the same. So that's the Apk Analyzer. It's quite interesting again, and if you can do some tests comparing with previous APKs, it can help you. Okay, let's now show you another cool feature. It's called samples. Imagine that in that case, okay, fair enough, I have my item. So the idea is to have a recycle view, and each element of the item is an item, each element of the recycle view. And at the moment, the design time, if I want to know how's going with the design, it's a simple layout with an icon and 2 strings. Since 2 versions ago, we have the option to use the tools namespace to help us with the text, for example, and we can take a look of the layout on the preview mode to understand what's happening. Not here, of course, but in the name. So I can put something like tools text Inaki, and when I go to the preview mode in the design, I can see the name, right? This was included 2 versions ago. The same for the city. I can see actually what's the result. Okay, given that this is an item that belongs to a recycle view, in the recycle view, in another layout, if I see the preview, that's a simple list by the default item. But, sorry, here I can specify to use a list item instead of the by default, right? So, list. Looks like that is not going to work, but I think so. Item, yep. Let me check the preview. No, still it's not there. But by attributes of the recycle view, I can change the layout weight. Sorry, but it's not working properly, so still it's in a beta. So the idea on the previous version is that I can include a list item directly in the layout. Well, that's something that it was existing before, but in the new version of Android Studio, I can use another way to load the data. Again, I have my simple item with a picture and a description of 2 labels. Instead of using instead of using this text, I can go to a sample, for example, sample speaker's name that is a property that I have defined in one JSON file. So if I go now to the design preview, I can see that now the name is Mike. From where comes this name? If within in the root project from app, we have a new folder that is called sample data, where there is a JSON, and this JSON, it's only a file where I define a different collection of speakers with the 3 properties: the icon, the name, and the city. So that means that I can provide simple data from a JSON file, not only strings. I can provide as well as resources, because it's very sad that it's not working in the example here. But the idea, when I have complete my item with the different elements, like for example here I have for Mike, the text is a speaker's name, but for the city I can do the same. I can go to sample data, JSON speakers, city, and then I can see my Mike is in Bangkok. The good part of this, in your recycle view, if it works, you can see the entirely collection of speakers on preview. And again, so the tools is something that can help you, but sometimes it's not like it's very simple. But if you are using sample data in a simple preview, you can see everything, and it's awesome. If you can see working, it's awesome. I don't know why it's not working here. Maybe let me check if I can do something least no tools. No, but it's not recognizing the attribute here. That's the thing. It's not recognizing. In theory, you have the list items. Well, okay, so it's the same, but with a more focus. Okay, and now I want to show you that's one of the biggest things in Android Studio 3, and it's the profiler. The profiler is new, actually. It's improved. And that means that you can do a lot of cool stuff with different, for the CPU, memory, for the network, and you can understand what are the problems on your application without going to another app. So let's see a demo how it works. I have one simple project. It's coming for the Google samples. And in this simple project, it's trying to download image from the internet, and we can detect what's happening. Okay, the first thing that we have to do, if we are targeting for API less than 25, we should activate the instrumentated profiler because it's easy. So in our activity, in our emulator, here we have a simple grid view. And in this grid view, we are showing, we are displaying images. So once we click in one image, we are going to the next activity, and we can go back. Okay, so in the profiler, how is reflected? First, the first cool thing is that you have a very small portion on the top that maybe is not, you cannot see, but it's the activity where you are. Right, so in that case, I'm starting a new activity. I started a new activity when I click on the picture, and here is saying that image detail activity is stopped. These purple points represents the actions of the user in the user interface. So in that case, it's a click, but here it's like a swipe, right? So I'm pulling down the user interface. Then here I have a Then here I have a back button, right? So it's quite convenient, right? Because you understand what's happening behind when the user is tracking something. Let's repeat again, and you can see better what's it. So that's my timeline of the activity, and I'm going to do some clicks. Sorry. Let's finish this. Okay, now I'm doing a swipe, and look, the swipe is I'm pulling, sorry, and it's appearing here. I'm clicking the menu, and there is another purple point, so I can follow actually what's happening. When I try to click in another image, then that first, so I'm calling the image detail activity. So it's quite convenient, it's quite nice. But let's continue. Then we have different options, and we can see, for example, the CPU. The CPU is improved, so I mean that I can follow all the threading process in my application, and I can record what's happening. So let's do a test without with interacting with the app. So we are recording actually, and let's see what's happening in the app. So you can see that behind there is like peaks of CPU, what's happening before, and again we are keeping we are touching random, and that's enough. So we stop the recording, and we can stop as well the live process, and we can see all the information possible with the threading happening in the app. So the first one, if it's the application, maybe it's not, you cannot see well, but it's the typical thing when we are working with Express application, right? We are in the main thread, and there is a queue of messages pending to send to the main thread to draw on the screen. For example, remember that maybe we are working with a background thread, and it has to be a communication between the two threads. With this CPU analyzer, we can see what's happening entirely, and it's awesome. So, for example, if you have some questions, even with automation testing about what's happening behind the scenes, you can record one piece of time, and then you can see all together. And it's not only about the main thread. So in that case, for example, when we are trying to get one image from the internet, we are using an async task, and here you have all the information related with the async task. Sorry. You have different options to see the chart. We can see only the calls. So I mean from the bottom to the top, from the bottom to up, the call chart, and the opposite, that's the flame chart. So from the real beginning until the end. Okay, that's CPU. Let's see now memory. Memory as well is something that, well, nowadays is quite important, right? So we don't want that our app kills the available memory on the application. So let's do again the same. Let's record and let's do some operations in between. Okay, well, maybe we can clear the cache. That means that we are going to download everything, and we can see like our memory of our application is increasing a lot. But the cool thing here is like we can do a dump. Actually, we can dump the memory of the process. So, and we can see the results of what's the content of the memory at this moment. Let's stop here. Let's stop the live, and this is the dump that we have done. Oh, sorry. And actually, we can see, for example, in the case of a bitmap, what's the bitmap included in memory. But the cool thing here is like we can see the bitmap preview that it was content on the memory management. So as well, if you want to trust in a low level your app with the memory and the CPU, it's very good. So you don't have to rely on external tools. Actually, you can measure and you can precise what's the problem. Not only with the bitmaps, right? So here we have a link hash map, for example, and we have the reference. The same for the strings. Even here we have the content of the string, right? The string in that case is the URL that we are going to get to download the image. So we are seeing the content of the heap of the memory for this dump. So it's actually awesome. Okay, and the last point here, it's the network. We had some similar thing in the previous versions, but let's see how it works in here. Okay, again, let's do a clear cache to request for more image, and we can do the same. So we can scroll, we can get image, but okay, that's live. So okay, that's the thing. We are trying to request, and we can see the request that we are doing. Okay, if we stop the profiler, we can go here, and actually it's very small, but we can see that I'm calling the night is coming, and I can see the request and the content of the image in that case. So it's, again, if you are working with a JSON as well, you can see the JSON. In that case, you can see the image view, or the content of the response, the headers, and the call stack. Important. So from where is coming this call in the app? So from an async task, in a method, download URL to bitmap. So perfect. Again, I recommend you to use Android Studio 3.0 as soon as possible, because it has very cool features, and in terms of performance, profiling, and monitoring issues is very cool. Okay, let's continue with that. This has been in terms of Android Studio. Again, you can download actually, so you can play whatever you want. The next thing, so one thing is Android Studio, right? But Android Studio requires a new plugin of Gradle, and I think that it's worth to speak a little bit about that, because it's very important to understand where we are now with the Gradle plugin in Android and the new features. The first thing is the Google's Maven repo, and that's a very good thing, because that means that previously, in the past, if you are an Android developer, you remember that if you want to use a new version of the Android support library, you have to download the Google repository and then accept the terms and conditions of the agreement with Google. Now, all the libraries of the Gradle plugin, support libraries, data binding, instant apps, architecture components, Android testing support library are in Maven. So you don't have to do anything with tricks in CI, like almost trying to print a yes in CI to accept the conditions. Now you can use, with a simple maven.google.com, all the libraries coming from Google. This is coming with the Gradle plugin 3, but in the next milestone, you can use on the repository, instead of using maven.google.com, you can use Google. And it's something that all the developers were requiring time ago, because it's very annoying to download manually the Google repository. Okay, the build cache has been improved. Actually, there are more tasks on Gradle that can be cacheables. So still is not 100% useful for everybody. And there is new improvements because, for example, if you switch between branches, still you have the library of the dependency available. How it works is very simple. When you are asking for a new dependency, and when you are asking for a new task, there is a hash map, there is a hash with the reference of this task or this dependency. If it's in the hash, you are not working with this task. You are returning the compiled version. There is a distribute version for its enterprise, and you can use the build cache, but with your team. Imagine that you are 20 developers. Maybe you can use this build cache for everybody, right? Actually, it's enterprise edition for Gradle, and I think that is payment. New dependencies configuration as well with the new plugin. So this is important because if you are working with new Android Studio 3, you will see that the compile is deprecated. Let's put this use case. We have one app with 3 different modules and one library. The library, well, the modules depends of the library, and the app depends of these modules. What happens if we are doing one change in the library? So the modules has to be recompiled, and finally the app. So this was very annoying, and well, not annoying, but it has a cost of time of compilation. With the new dependency management, we are deprecating the compile configuration, and we have to use 2 new elements, implementation and API. So that's very important because, again, if you're working with Android Studio 3, you are going to have this warning. It's only a warning, but you don't have to use compile anymore. Let's see what's the difference between implementation and API. Let's see this class is a HTTP client wrapper, and let's analyze 2 dependencies of this class. The first one is HTTP client. This dependency is included in the signature of the constructor. So if I want to call this HTTP client wrapper from my code, I have to use a HTTP client. So there is like a dependency. The next dependency is exception utils from common slang. This dependency is internal for this class. It's not exposed to the outside. And that's why we can say that for the case of HTTP client, it's an API dependency because we are exposing this third-party dependency in the constructor, and implementation is internal implementation of detail for the exception utils, meaning that the implementation, we don't have to recompile if it doesn't change, and it will be faster. That's why with the new Gradle, or with the new plugin of Gradle with Android Studio, everything is faster. Because previously, if I analyze your build Gradle, for example, maybe you have 30 compiles of dependencies. Now, you can switch, and if you are using implementation, it's very cheap in terms of time and resources. So keep in mind that we have 2 new configurations, API and implementation. And the final table of what's the status is compile is deprecated, and now we have implementation and API. Provided, remember that sometimes we use provided, now it's compile only, and APK is as well deprecated, and we are using runtime only. Take a look, there is an immigration guide in the Google's developer blogspot, so you can see more about that. Multimodal. So multimodals is something that is very has sound a lot in Google I/O. I think that a lot of people now is trying to see single model or multimodal. Absolutely, the benefits now for multimodals are thousands, for example. One of them is, for example, code reuse. We can reuse the code. In terms of clean architecture, for example, that means that we can have separation between different layers. Improve the caching. This caching that I was talking before about build cache. With multimodal, it's easy to build cache from Gradle to understand that this task has to be cached. And compilation avoidance. There is one talk, I think I saw one, with T about Gradle tricks to do compilations faster, and he's going to talk about compilation avoidance. And what's the deal of multimodal? What's the benefits? Well, first of all, this is an example of, I think that is 150 models with 200 dependencies. With Gradle 2.14, the startup time is almost 3 minutes. With 2.3.3.3, it's 10 seconds. And now with the new version, is 3. So that's why it's now the multimodals is very important, because we are reducing a lot of time. And as funny fact, in Agoda, we started to modularize the app 7 or 8 months ago. So much time before we started with everything. And the other day, I was asked to give the times, the difference of before and after we applying the models. And it was much more time. And what's the reason? Because we were working with the plugin 2.2, and it was slow. Now with the new plugins, actually it's easier and faster. So think about modularize the app, because we can include a lot of new benefits. Another benefit is the parallel building. That's how before was working when you are consuming a library. So first we have to execute the manifest merger, the resources merger, the AAPT, Java compilation, and generate or zip the AAR. Then from the client, from your model, you have to consume this AAR and start again. This is very, I don't know, this is not very good. No, it has a lot of problems. And now with the new plugin, we can do parallel. So at the moment that we are doing a manifest merger or resources merger, we are calling the client as well. And we are gaining a lot of time, and we are not unzipping the AAR. So that's why actually it's faster, everything with the new plugin. Okay, the dependencies management, they have improved one cool thing. Remember that now if you are working with Gradle and you have different build types, or you have debug release, and you are including your library with debug on release, so you have to play with the build variant selection in Android Studio, and you have to define the different build variants in your module and publishing the default configuration. And it was absolutely a nightmare. When you have a lot of modules, you have to create the build types in every module to match the relation. Now, with the new plugin, you don't have to do anything of that. So the back compile has to be with the back API, so the parts of the elements. Maybe here is easier to understand. So Gradle and Android Studio now understand if you are working in a build type debug, it's going to work with the build type debug of your module, and you don't have to write anything else. This is quite convenient. The same for the flavors. If you have one flavor called blue in the library, you are going to match the same flavor. Okay, we saw before in the keynote about instant apps, and well, it's like running native web without install the app is quite interesting, actually, this technology, and how it works in terms of Gradle and build tools. It's like we have this library and we have two features, for example, with a base feature. And now Gradle is adding a new configuration called feature. Okay, remember that now if you want to create one application, you're calling this application, you have one library, and you have to define this in the top build Gradle. Now we have a new one, it's called feature. this is very useful if we are doing Android instant apps. So that means that with the same base code, we can define these new Android features modules, and we can use for normal apps and for instant apps without update anything. Of course, we have a new configuration called instant app that is proper for the instant app. But again, like the message, we are going to the multi-module option. So another of the benefits is to use multi-module with instant apps and don't have to do a lot of modifications. Okay, there is a lot of new things with Android Studio and the new build tools. We have incremental task, AAPT2 that by default we can use. Java 8 language features. Remember that Jack has been deprecated, well, was deprecated 3 weeks before Google I/O. But besides Kotlin, Google is offering total support for Java 8 actually. So the tool chain has changed a little bit. Flavor selection as well. There is a new configuration inside the flavors, and layout inspector, layout editor. Explore by yourself the Android Studio. Okay. In terms of, because it has been only 36 minutes, in terms of if you want to learn more, you have the video of the what's new in Android tools of the Google I/O, and then the different reference like the new Android plugin migration that is very important to understand what's happening. Okay, Cop and Cap, thank you very much, guys.